What if your past didn't disqualify you from leadership, but it actually made you uniquely qualified for it?
At some point in your life, you have to take ownership and become responsible for your growth and development. It is no one's responsibility to make things in your life the way that you want them. It is totally your responsibility. No one's coming to save you. You got to make the decision to get up and get started. You got to make the decision to be better. You got to make the decision to know better.
Everyone has a soft drawer where we hide the stuff we don't want to face. Today, we're opening yours. I'm Lisa Begley, and this is the Soft Drawer Podcast. If your life feels messy, stuck, or outgrown, good. That's where we begin.
Today's conversation sits at the intersection of resilience, accountability, workforce transformation, and second chances. Topics that don't just shape lives, but increasingly shape how modern organizations think about leadership, culture, and impact. Our guest today is Carlita Brown, also known as Asabi, founder of Pusher Life, a re-entry and personal success organization focused on helping people move forward with clarity, structure, and ownership of their next chapter. And after spending over 2 decades incarcerated, Carlita didn't just re-enter society, she redefined her role in it, becoming a prison re-entry manager, speaker, author, and success coach, working directly with individuals and systems navigating accountability and long-term transformation. Carlita, thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. I always like to talk a little bit about this offline. I want to dive in a little bit to the origin, right? So before we talk about pivot with workforce development and Pusher Life and the work you're doing now, I kind of want to start at the beginning. When you reflect on your earlier life, what were the internal and external factors that most shaped your path that you were on then?
Wow. As I'm sitting here reflecting now, internally, I can describe the origin of my story as, I would want to say a balance, but then that will be untrue. I only can remember more dark days than light days. I remember more sad days than happy days. I remember more pain than joy growing up. That's internal. Externally, do have an older sister. I do have a twin brother. I believe at the age of 13, from the age of 18, I really lived on the street. I lived to pillow, couch to couch. And at the age of 18, I was incarcerated. I became incarcerated. I was arrested and served 22 years at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. So my life, growing up, I believe as a toddler and growing up in elementary, as far back as I can remember, I had a regular life, a normal life. And then somewhere in that journey, the darkness overshadowed and I became further and further away from what I knew to be normal to a new normal that became toxic and unhealthy, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And you've, graciously spoken openly about spending 22 years incarcerated. So just to give listeners a little perspective and they may not fully understand what the length of time does to someone emotionally, psychologically, practically, because this speaks to who you are now. What do you wish, looking at that, what do you wish people understood better about someone who has gone through that experience?
First, I wish that I understood.
Yeah.
Understood more than what I did while incarcerated. I mean, of course, hence now I know because of the experience, but it's really nothing. If you haven't had the experience yourself, it's kind of difficult to wrap your head around 22 years. So I've been in prison longer than I've walked free physically. So I grew up there, and most of what I know and most of what I learned as it relates to my growth and development came from prison. I didn't have the privilege, even as a female, and learning how to clean yourself and learning the importance, of taking care of yourself as a young. I learned that in prison. Learning how to sit, learning how to dress, learning how to speak. I learned all that in prison. I didn't learn that in school. I didn't learn that from my household. I learned it from prison. And so some people find it difficult to understand that when you serve so much of a long sentence and became an adult, it's kind of difficult to adjust once you are free, but you can do it nonetheless. So I don't really spend time trying to help people understand. What I do is the things that I finally understand about myself, I explain it to the best of my ability so you can have some kind of patience and compassion. I'm not looking for nobody to understand. I need your grace. I need your understanding because I don't know everything. And I don't wear on me that I've been incarcerated for 22 years. And I don't sound like it. I don't sound like it. So so when I'm in a room or if I'm engaging in conversations, I look like or sound like the oddball because I'm willing to tell the truth to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's even challenging to deal with that in a sense.
I bet. Yeah.
So for me, I don't look for people to understand. I want your compassion. I want your grace. Yeah.
I love that. And I was thinking that when we were talking about the question, when you were responding, I was thinking about that. If I ask myself that question, I would say, give grace and compassion, give what you said. Don't write people off. There's so much that can be done. Transformations, some do and some don't, but the work you're doing, helping people to go through the transition is just, unprecedented. And I really appreciate that. Did you seem to find like this internal narrative when you were incarcerated? Is that where the change happened from like what you would call survival to ownership, to owning it and knowing that you were going to come out? Or was it something that happened after you were out of there?
No, it happened. My transformation happened while I was incarcerated. So I got incarcerated in 1998. I would say I would chop it up in 4 quarters because it's just easy.
Okay.
And just say for the first 5 years of my incarceration, I was young. I didn't have a clue. I was still trying to figure it out. I found ways to still get in trouble, get in mess because I'm still young. The second quarter kind of got my attention. Hold up. That's when reality settles in.
Yeah.
You were sentenced to 40 years. You're not going home no time soon. And so having those kind of conversations and reality checks with myself is what kind of helped me. So I began to indulge myself in different activities that would help change my mindset. And so once I've started participating in therapy, I was fortunate to have a therapist while in prison too, very great ones. And so in that and just trying to figure it out, I realized that I can make a difference within myself if I really want to. And because internally I wanted something different, I wanted to change, I began to read books, I began to journal, I began to talk to people a little bit more and open up about the struggles that I was dealing with. And from that, I just started doing workshops. I just started talking all about me and how I'm overcoming different things. I would open up about my thought, my mindset, and it wasn't always pretty. I would tell the truth about toxic decisions and consequences that came with it. And I didn't realize I was doing that until people would come to me and be like, why are you doing this? It would be off. And then I had to check my intentions. Why am I doing this? And I realized that for me, talking about myself and owning my stuff enabled me to show a level of accountability that was taking place not for you or nobody else, but for me.
Mm.
And so
And
doing that work, that's what started my journey of doing the healing, the internal healing that I needed. And in turn, I just naturally help other people. I thought if I was feeling free and I was getting myself free, why not help the people around me become much more free? And so later on, I created a platform called Victims Awareness Building Bridges Project, where the administration entrusted me to lead women who are incarcerated for different crimes to take ownership and talk about it and have difficult conversations. And it gotten to the point where victims would come into the institution and we would sit and have difficult conversations where victimizers are taking ownership and listening to how their behavior affected somebody else. But then the victims are sitting there and are willing to be open-minded to hear the story that led up to what actually happened, because there is always a story and that society most times don't want to hear about.
right.
Most of us don't wake up. Most of us don't wake up out of our sleep and say, I'm going to commit a crime. I'm going to do something wrong so I can end up in prison. For some people, okay. But for those of us that whose story is not that, we did not wake up. We did not want this to be our reality. It's
Right.
just so
Wasn't
happened. Right. And so that is what kind of propelled me to become who I am today. I already was doing the work while I was in prison. I didn't wait till I got released. I found who I was. I discovered who I was while I was there. I found my purpose. I had an encounter with God, and God met me right where I was at. I oftentimes tell people it was when I was in a desolate place that God came and showed me love, lifted me. I experienced the love of God, and then he would send people my way, volunteers. I would begin to teach. I taught Bible study. I preached in church. I did liturgical dancing. Anything that if I realized it was a gift that I had or a skill set or a talent, I want to give that back to God. And so I use that as tithing and offering, because in prison you ain't got much. So what I do have, God, I'm going to give it to you and serve your people with it. And hence, I never look back since.
Carlita, man, I love that. You are an amazing human. Can you tell me, so by the time you went through all of this and you did I love the idea. First of all, I take a step back, because you caught me at something where it is amazing to me that you were able to, I guess, call it negotiations, right? Negotiate a victim with the victimizer and have that conversation. You know, it's one thing to help somebody maybe realize accountability, take accountability, and just work one-on-one with somebody, but to bring those two together and find some level of success or common ground. I mean, that's amazing. So thank you for that. Wow. And to have that insight and that foresight inside being incarcerated to say, I think we should try this, amazing. By the time you got released, what was the first step for you after that? Going from where you were in prison to outside?
So the first step for me is I went to a 2-year program. So in the state of Maryland, there is no halfway houses for women. So I went to the Marion House, who opened their doors to receive me. Because I had spent so much time in prison, I needed somewhere to go. So they opened their program up. And so I completed the whole 2 years successfully. And then from there, I still felt lost. I still felt like I needed something. There was still fear there. And psychologically, I still was struggling to adapt, and emotionally I was struggling with reconciliation with family and friends. I just didn't have a clue. And so it was this gentleman, I was expressing my frustrations with him about the process. Like I've been in prison for so long, and I feel like I'm ready, but now it's like I feel like I'm back at square one, because internally I feel stuck and I feel unheard. And without my permission, he reached out to this young lady who in turn introduced me to 2 different programs, and one program was Pivot. And so I actually was a participant for Pivot. So I graduated. I went through the Pivot program after completing the Marion House. I completed the Pivot program. I got my first job that I ever had in life. And through the help with Pivot, I received my first place. Never had a place. So with their assistance, I got my first apartment. Actually got my permit. I let that expire though. So I got my first place, my first job, and my permit. Everything my first time. And so I believe that the executive team seen something in me where they called after I completed. They helped me get employment, and I was working, but I was unhappy there because the same way I was on 90-day probation, they were on 90-day probation. And so most people take you for granted when they think that because you've been in prison for a long time that you don't know a lot, but I know enough. Yeah. I know enough to advocate for myself. I know enough to know my value. I know enough to know my self-worth. So they did not commit to what was on the table. And so I was like, listen, I can't stay here if you're not going to do your part, what you promised me. And that was for me to grow into a position because I come with a lot. Although I've been in prison, I have a lot of vocation. I have a lot of education.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work out. And in the midst of that, my personal success coach gave me a call and asked, can we take you to lunch? We have a job offer for you. And they took me to lunch, and it was a no-brainer. And so I started as a personal success coach here at Pivot. And then eventually I got promoted to reentry manager, where I now go to MCIW, the very prison that I once resided. And I go and speak to the ladies. I coach the ladies. We do parole advocacy for the ladies. I attend court with the ladies. So it's just in my personal life, with the help of Pivot, I was able to brand myself pusher. And so I am an author, a 3-time author. I am on the bestseller list with Global Butterfly Effects. And through the support with Pivot, I get to travel. So I get to work and experience things that I never experienced at the same time. So it has definitely been a blessing to me.
Yeah.
And something that I don't take for granted, because everything that I've experienced thus far has been the first time for me. And it's just an incredible position to be in, that I can work and do the thing that I'm passionate about, that I love to do. And I get to enjoy life at the same time.
Love that.
It's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you're just doing amazing work. And I love all these firsts for you. You're working closely now with individuals navigating reentry, accountability, reintegration. From your experience, Carlita, what are the most common reasons that you maybe see or you can see that reentry fails? Like the efforts that make, what is it and how can we fix it?
So one of the biggest headaches for me is the community expects a man or woman who is just being released to pay for everything. How can I pay for shelter? Like for women, it is so hard to find housing, and most of all the housing programs here want you to pay money. How can I pay money when I'm homeless? I just came home from prison. I'm not even employed. And then you want me to get employment, but I have no home. And I need employment to get a home. So it's like, it's almost like it's backwards in a sense. And I almost wish that more of us that was in this reentry space would find a way to start the reentry process as soon as a man or woman is incarcerated, that we start that process right then and there. Here at Pivot, we do our due diligence to go into the detention centers and things of that nature to try to catch the woman early on versus wait till they get incarcerated, they get their time, and then we don't hear from them. And then when they 10 years down the line, they get released, we're expecting them to pay their way through life when it's unfair.
Yeah.
And so that is one of my greatest headaches in this space.
Yeah. I
It's
love
the
that idea,
resources.
though. I mean, I can't imagine how ultimately valuable it would be to start to, I mean, I don't know how that would work. And I'm sure you're working on it, which I love, but such a great idea. Like if they could start early and just learn about the things that are going to face and how to handle them and how to, kind of review each thing. I don't know. I feel like there's a whole teaching program there that could be implemented,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, pivot and then bring me to Pusher Life. Like, how did those two evolve?
So Pusher is birthed from Victims Awareness Building Bridges Project. I did not want to, because I created that initiative while at MCIW, I did not want it to take it from MCIW. And so I've actually cultivated people to take over, but unfortunately COVID came and it shut it down and slowed it down. And the person that I cultivated to take over, unfortunately on December the 10th of last year, she passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While still in prison. Okay, but anyway, I just did not want to take that program, but I knew that it was a part of who I was. It was a part of my passion and what I wanted to do. And so one day, someone texted me and was like, "Girl, you were so pushy." And I'm like, "Huh?" And they like, not in a, and they was like, no, not in a negative way. I need somebody like you to push me. And then it just kept echoing. I kept hearing it. And so I was like, one day I said, I got it. And so I sat down and I just journaled and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I like to play with words, acronyms. So I was like, I'm going to call myself the Pusher. And so I called myself the Pusher, which stands for preparing us strategically, helping everyone. And what I wanted to do is I didn't want to put myself in a box and I didn't want to just cater to one set people or a person. I want to help everybody who's receptive. And so what Pusher does is what you asked me earlier. A part of me becoming an author is the material that I write. It comes from out of my journal. So most people think I'm just sitting and writing. No, I have books and books of so many journals. And so one of my journals is It Takes One to Know One workbook and journal that I created into a publication for people to actually, I walk you through my own healing process, but I challenge you to not judge me, to not criticize me, but look in the mirror. And so that is how my writing is. And from that, what God has allowed me to do now is bring people together in a different kind of way. And so what I do now is under Pusher is bring people on to the platform and I coach them publicly. Sometimes, like once, here's an example. I had a mother and a daughter. The mother was years and years of drug abuse. So you can imagine how that affected to the daughter.
Yeah.
Well, today they are reconciled and they chose to come on my platform to have the difficult conversation because I think it's important to show our community that it is real, that there is people that really, really is out here doing the work, the internal work, so that we can create a better community and just uplift ourselves. But we understand that it first have to start with the individual. So I'm just grateful that, again, God has given me another avenue where I can bring people together towards healing. And from that, I created another initiative, Healing 1 Million People, one person at a time. And what's special about this is I'm not running a race. And I mean what I say, one person at a time. I will talk to one person as if it was 1 million people. I'm not captivated by numbers. I'm captivated by the work and the willingness to come get this work, because I'm gonna give you the work. They do call me the pusher for a reason, and I do push people because healing is important. Healing, it is important. And to heal, we got to understand why is it need to heal. And this is coming from my own life. It's necessary.
Yeah.
I do this because it keeps me focused. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me reminded. I never want to be the person that I was when I was younger. I never want to fall into that hopeless place again. I never want to feel like I'm unworthy again. I never want to feel unloved again. I never want to go through those motions. And if I don't want to go through that, then I have to have the difficult conversations with myself. I have to be willing to check myself and hold myself accountable. So it all goes back to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. You've described pusher as not a one size fits all.
It's
not. Why is personalization so critical when you're dealing with healing and accountability and growth?
Because if I come to you, let's say if you're my doctor and I come in and my arm is broke, I'm not expecting you to put a cast on my foot. I'm expecting you to tend to my arm because my arm is broke. So I'm entrusting you. For me, it's about relationships. And in order to even get somebody to talk about their process, their internal environment and where they are, I have to be willing to expose those unhealed places in my life from the past to the present. I have to be willing to do that in order to encourage somebody to see the benefit and verbally speaking those things. We don't have to hold them hostage anymore. So for me, it's about building a relationship. And in order to do that, you got to be personable. You got to be relational, because I've learned that I'm not a robot. I can't handle it. I'm not as strong as a cup of coffee in the morning. I'm not all the time. And I got to be willing to tell the truth about that.
Yeah.
And it's all about trusting yourself. It's not about trusting other people, because if I trust myself, then I'm going to get whatever it is that I need in the encounter that I'm having with you, because I trust myself.
I love that insight, Carlita. Thank you so much. Today, now, I just want to bring it a little bit into the future. So we're seeing more and more conversations around second chances, workforce inclusion, and mental health. But I feel like the progress is still uneven. So where do you believe, based on that, where do you believe organizations are still missing the mark?
We're people that are longing to have a human experience. That's all we want. You take a group of a certain demographic from an uncivilized place, you got to teach them how to be civilized in a world that's foreign to them.
Yeah.
Don't put so many expectations on men and women that are being released from these desolate places, because there is not a lot of resources, believe it or not. And the work that you do on yourself, you have to do that. There's nobody in there saying, this is how you do it. This is how you apply A, B, and C. You got to figure that thing out. But once you are released, now we got greater resources. Now we have access to people. But the people that we have access to, if you're not compassionate, if you are not understanding, if you're not open to hearing the person's lived experience, but yet you want to be in re-entry. I tell people all the time, you don't belong here. This ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to sit down at the table with somebody with lived experience, how can you run a business to serve people with the lived experience?
Yeah, that makes sense. So looking back now, taking all of this, looking back, what version of yourself are you most grateful to no longer be?
My 13-year-old self.
Okay. How so?
My 13-year-old self reminds me of the beginning of slipping into those dark places, those dark thoughts. I was shot. I didn't mention that earlier, but at the age of 15, I was shot on two different occasions.
Ugh.
So bad. I wouldn't want to do that again. I wouldn't want to be 13 again. I just wouldn't. But at the same time, I don't have any regrets, because all the things that I've experienced and continue to experience shows me how much I've grown. And it shows me how healthy I have become. I love myself today more than I ever have.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that no one can do to change that. I'm not looking for validation from people or anyone. I validate myself. It feels good to be validated, to be pat on the back, but I ain't looking for it today.
Yeah.
I've learned to provide that for myself.
You don't need it.
Less disappointments, where you can learn to provide certain things for yourself, especially internally. And so, yeah, it's my I actually wrote a letter to my 13-year-old self. I wrote a letter to my 13-year-old self.
Oh.
It's in my book. It's in one of my books.
Is it?
I've written a letter.
Well,
Yes.
so if someone wants to go, if someone wants to go find your book, maybe read that letter, what's the best way for them to find your books, Carlita?
Pushyourlife.org.
Okay. All right.
Pushyourlife.org.
And finally, for someone listening who feels trapped by their past or labeled by just one chapter in their life, what would you want them to hear today?
I want you to hear that freedom is a state of mind. Freedom is choosing for yourself that what you desire without blame, shame, and or guilt. At some point in your life, you have to take ownership and become responsible for your growth and development. It is no one's responsibility to make things in your life the way that you want them. It is totally your responsibility. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel good. I know sometimes it even hurts. But I am telling you, if you just tell yourself, get up and get it done. Because see, sometimes you got to encourage yourself. Sometimes you got to hold yourself accountable. And not even just encourage. Sometimes you got to chastise yourself. You are responsible for your own growth and development. No one's coming to save you. You got to make the decision to get up and get started. You got to make the decision to be better. You got to make the decision to know better. And I'm telling you, when you make that decision for yourself, everything else will fall in place.
Yes. I love that. That is so powerful, Carlita. Thank you so much for your honesty, for your leadership, and the work you're doing for people who need this growth and accountability and responsibility. Growth is possible, and responsibility doesn't cancel your hope. So for those listening, you can learn more about Carlita Brown and her work at pushyourlife.org. And if this conversation challenged the way you think about leadership, accountability, or second chances, make sure you subscribe and follow, where we'll have conversation after conversation with people making a difference like Carlita Brown. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all again next time.
Thank you.
Every week we come here and open the drawer. You already know what's inside. You always have. And if this conversation challenged you in a good way, and you think it will help challenge someone else who needs it, send it to them, because that's how we pay it forward together. Subscribe and follow so you never miss what's coming next. And find us at thesockdrawerpodcast.com.